So I just want to walk y'all through some of the basics of recording here and mixing. This is a pretty standard song. We've got rhythm guitar and we've got just a secondary rhythm guitar. What's kind of unique about this song is that we've got trombone. We've got two different trombone tracks. So right off the bat, we're gonna probably pan those a little bit, but we'll get into panning in a minute. To start off with, I usually start with the drums and get those sounding right. So at the moment, I have the vocals are muted because I'm going to deal with them a little later. So here's what the song sounds like as it is. All right, so right off the bat, um, I'm just going to solo. I have all these drums routed to this drum bus here. Right off the bat, we need to um, put a compressor on this kick, mainly to just control the volume. Now this is Reaper, so but any DAW will work. I'm going to use just a stock compressor for this, and this is the stock compressor that comes with Reaper, and it happens to have, you know, a kick drum setting. So we'll just listen to that, and I don't want to compress it that much. I just want to kind of catch the peaks. So somewhere in that neighborhood will do. It's a pretty fast release time, and of course it's catching it immediately. Um, this kick sounds okay. You can probably come in here and, you know, if you want to, and this is all on personal preference on what you want to do with the kick drum. I'm going to change this to just a band. If you want to give it a little bump, you know, around 60 hertz, so I wouldn't go too drastic with it. But just give it a little bit of low end there. One thing that is good to do um, with your drums is I'm gonna go grab a saturation plugin. Now I've got a lot of paid plugins on here, but I'm gonna go grab a plugin. I'm just gonna go grab a free plugin. I'm gonna show you. Here are all the plugins I have, but so Saturation Knob is a free plugin, and as a I don't want it distorted quite that much. So just giving it a little bit more low end. And one thing that saturation does is it will make the perceived volume louder, even though you're not raising the volume. And there's a lot to be said about saturation plugins, and how they help your recording. But you know, for this, for this, in this case, really what you need to know is that if you're peaking, or you've got something that's kind of standing out, a saturation plugin can kind of tame that and tone it down. And you'll see that like here with the snare drum. We'll just solo this snare drum. We'll get to where it's actually playing snare. And you see we're peaking over here. We're hitting -5 dB, something like that. And what you'll get in the song when you mix it down is you'll get what a lot of people call fishtails, where the snare just sticks up, louder than the rest of the song. And if you'll notice, like if we play everything together, that snare is peaking where everything else is. And when you get to the mastering process, if you've got the kick and the snare just standing out like that, it's going to suck a lot of volume out of your master, and you won't be able to get everything loud enough. So, like with this snare drum, one of the things we can do, and once again, I'll show you another. This is another free saturation plugin. This is SGA by Shattered Glass, and once again, we'll solo this snare. So we've got this snare. I'm gonna add a little bit more treble to it. Turn the gain up just a little bit so you can hear that getting louder. I'm gonna turn the output down. So now you can see, we're peaking here. We were peaking up here. And even though I've turned the volume down on this snare, now it's still cutting through the mix really well, even though we've actually made the volume lower. And you could do the same thing on the snare drum on the kick drum if you want. But adding these saturation plugins is a good way to add perceived volume while actually dropping the volume. That way you can get the mix louder when you get to the mastering process. And we're not sucking up energy and volume in the song. We can get everything louder because we were able to turn the snare and the kick down a little bit. So and you might want to do this as well on the kick drum. You might want to go in here. So we'll turn this one off. We'll grab this Shattered Glass one again. I'm gonna turn that down. So without it and with it. And you can hear how it makes the kick drum sound louder, even though we're actually turning it down. So that's something that you definitely can do. Now, I tend to set up my drums from drummer perspective, as if I'm sitting behind the drum. So a lot of people do it from the audience perspective, as if you're looking at the drummer. But since it doesn't really matter which way you do it, so I'm gonna pan. I'm gonna pan as if it's drummer perspective. So I've got my first tom just a little bit to the left, center on the second one, and then as if I have maybe another rack tom and then a floor tom over here. I tend to put my hi-hat to the left, and I tend to put my ride over to the right. Now I don't want to pan these drums, super wide, because I'm going to pan the guitars and the trombones wide left and right. I want the drums to sit in a pocket here. So this cowbell, I'm going to move opposite of my hi-hat. So just so when it's playing, you'll hear it. It'll be a nice contrast between the two. So here's the drums panned. That hi-hat could probably be a smidge louder. All right, so I actually like that. I don't do an awful lot um, with, say, these drums were actually recorded really well, so you're not gonna have to do an awful lot, with the EQing these. This cowbell, I actually want it to stand out. And a lot of people want everything in the mix to be smooth and even, but that's not the way music often works. So it's not as important that you have everything smooth and perfect. Occasionally you want something that kind of stands out. Not that it's abrasive, but make music unique. I mean, you want the song to stand out among the crowd. So for me, I want this hi-hat to stand out. So once again, I'm going to grab this saturation plug, and I'm going to add some saturation to this hi-hat. It's going to do two things. It's going to make it stand out, but it's also going to tame it just a little bit. Oh yeah, see, that's standing out a lot. So we can probably bring this volume back down now. So we've got low end on this bass drum, but I actually want some I actually want more, like top end on this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab an EQ here. I'm going to find where I like this. We got some air. I like that. So I might even, kind of give this a high shelf and just let it breathe. So one of the things, it might sound a little funny by itself, this kick drum, but you're not listening to music in solo. You're listening to music together. So it's important to, really, you should be mixing not in solo, but in the context of the song. And in the context of the song, this kick drum now, it stands out. It's got some presence. It's also got that little bit of low end that we had. if you don't like the this saturation plugin, we could turn the other one back on. I kind of like the low end that this saturation plugin gives you. But you just needed a little bit of high end there. Now, the next thing that I usually go to is the bass, and the bass as it is right now sounds like this. All right, so that's just a DI bass. It's just direct input. I know how this was recorded, and it's okay quality, but it's kind of all over the place. See, it's not very smooth. It's not very even. One of the things that makes a professional mix as opposed to an amateurish mix is consistent low end. You want consistent low end throughout the song. So I'm going to show y'all. I'm going to make a new track here. I'm going to have this as a bass bus. So I'm going to have these. I'm going to make 3 different bass tracks, and you'll see why in a second. But I'm going to have these routed to this bass bus. So I'm going to go ahead and start by routing that one. I'm going to turn off the master send. So it's just going to this bass bus, and then the bass bus is going to the master channel. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do on this bass bus. I'm going to solo this for a second. I'm going to open this. And once again, this is just with stock plugins. And this is going to seem a little crazy at first, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to low pass this. And the default setting is pretty good. I'm just going to have it start to roll off right here above 200 Hertz. And what this is going to do is only going to let the low end through. So then you're going to go grab a compressor, just whatever stock compressor comes with your DAW. And I'm just going to leave this at the default settings here. I'm going to move this ratio up to say 3 or 4, somewhere in that neighborhood. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this, I'm going to move the threshold down until I start catching the peaks. I'm going to show you. You can see now we're getting pretty decent gain reduction, especially on those low end notes, because remember, we're just letting the low end through. So the threshold is set to 20.6. I'm going to take and I'm going to just copy this compressor here. And so now I've just duplicated it. So I've got this first one is going to be set to 4:1, basically. This second one, I'm going to leave the threshold exactly where it is, but I'm going to almost limit this. I'm going to take the ratio up here, say to like 22, 23, 24:1, somewhere in there. And what we've got now is just we've got a solid mass of low end coming through. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to duplicate this entire track. So I'm going to duplicate this track only on this second track. Instead of low passing it, just letting the low end through, what I'm going to do is I'm going to high pass it. Turn this one off. And the same as we did before, right around 200 hertz, I'm just going to let that just gradually kind of taper off right there around 200 hertz. So on this one, I'll solo this one so you can hear now. On this one now we've got just the high end coming through. And I'm going to adjust these to where right, so it looks like about 22 is where the threshold should be. And just somewhere in that neighborhood. It doesn't have to be perfect. But what we've got now, we had low end coming through on that first track. And now we've got just high end coming through. So we've got two tracks, one with just the low end, one with just the high end. So here's what those two sound like together. And you can hear how now that's evened out that bass. But the bass doesn't have any character. I mean, it's just a DI straight in. We have evened it out. We've got constant low. We've got some high end. Now, one of the things you can do, I'm gonna just duplicate this second track here. So now we've got the bass, which was low. This will be the bass high end. And this one I'm going to put as bass distortion. So if you have an amp plug-in of some kind, like an Ampeg or some sort of bass amp simulator, you can put it here on this third track. I'm going to take the volume down. I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. We'll just solo this for a second. I'm just going to go grab a stock distortion plugin. Now, Reaper comes with a distortion plugin, but and yours probably will too. And basically what I'm going to do is this is now pretty much destroyed this track. Yeah, that sounds absolutely disgusting. But if you bring it in underneath the rest of these, so let's see what I'm talking about. It's going to add some character. All right, so now we've got, like I said, a bass with the low end, just the low coming through, bass with just the high end coming through, and then we've got a bass that we've destroyed with distortion. But when we bring it on in underneath the other two, it's actually going to sit really well, and we've evened out all of the bass. So we've got constant low end, we've got some good definition on the high end, and then we've got some character that we've added with the distortion. So I'm going to let y'all hear what that sounds like in the context of the song. I think I like this other saturation plugin. We're going to use it. And that kick drum. All right, now, so that's what we've done here. And remember, we've got it all routed to this bass bus. I'm going to go grab a plugin that does cost some money. But it is an excellent plugin. as R bass by Waves. And I mean, even as just the default here, I'm going to show y'all. I'm going to solo this bass so you can hear it better. And what it's going to do is really going to start adding some low end. I'll take it off. Back on. And that plugin adds so much depth down there. We're going to adjust the frequency up. I want the bass to sit right around 100 hertz. So, and this plugin does have, now this is just the default setting. It's just the way it comes up. This does have a bass preset here, but really just the default setting works really well. So again, I'm gonna put this right at about 100 hertz. Depending on how you move this intensity up and down will depend on how much emphasis you're getting. Like that's way too much. Move it all the way down here, you're not getting anything. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna play this in the context of the song, and we'll get this dialed in. All right, so you can hear what a big difference that makes, just by adding R bass. It just really adds some extra low end to it. It's well worth. I think it's $30. Occasionally they'll have a sale, Waves wheel. So, and every now and again they'll actually give it away for free if you keep checking back with them. So they do that around holidays and things. Like I said, occasionally they give it away for free. Definitely worth picking up, especially if you see it for free or at a discount. Worth every penny. Now, one of the things that a lot of people do on their drum bus is they'll actually duplicate the drum bus. So I'm going to duplicate this drum bus. I'm going to take this volume down for a second. And what they'll do is, we're just going to go, say, grab this stock compressor here. And they'll actually just compress the mess out of this other track, kind of a parallel compressor. So we're going to take this down. And that's, we've actually, you can hear the pumping in the drum. It just sounds terrible. But, so there's our main drum. And if we just bring this drums in, bring that drum track in underneath it. So that's the regular drums without the parallel compressor. Wait till the drums kick back in. Here it is with the parallel compressor. Out with. So that can add some extra energy to that drum tracks. Here's what it sounds like in the track. So that sounds really good. So after you get the drums correct, you get the bass sitting where you want, then you can start working on, the guitars and the extra pieces in the song. So I'm going to take a look at these guitars real quick. Just going to All right, one of the things that I always do with guitars, we'll start with this one right here. Again, I'm just going to use stock plug-in. I'm just going to go grab an EQ here, and I'm going to high pass. Now, a lot of people don't, and that's fine. But let me show you. See all this information down here? This is in the sub frequencies. I mean, this is down in where the bass drum and the kick should live. And we're not gonna, I'm gonna toggle this on and off, and you'll see we're not losing any information as far as the guitar goes as to what you're gonna hear. So let's with it on. That's with it off. With it on. You could probably even move it up. So I can hear that it's taken away there. But it's not taking away anything down here. So if you'll high pass it, you'll take away these sub frequencies down here where the bass and the kick drum live, and you'll actually get more bass and kick. It'll be less muddy. It'll be clearer down in the bass. Some people don't do this, but it really will clean up the bass. And down here in these lower frequencies carries a lot of energy. So removing this mud and this clutter, all this extra low end that you don't need, and you don't hear, but if you leave it in there, it builds up and builds up. And when you go to the mastering process, you'll never be able to get it very loud because it'll be sucking the energy out of the song. It'll be trying to boost all these low frequencies that you don't need. So just go ahead and get them out of the way. Get them out of the way. We don't need them. And I'm going to do the same thing for this one. I'm just going to high pass, just taking away this mud and this clutter that's going to build up. You don't want to build up of low end down there. So just high pass it a little bit. I'm going to see here. This actually... This was actually recorded pretty well. I don't mind the sound of that. I'm gonna move it over here to like say in the 40s in that direction. Mute this other guitar so I can. Yeah, so that actually sits in there pretty well. I mean, we could boost some of these high end. And one of the things I like to do is sometimes there will be some harshness that can be in the guitars. If you don't own Soothe, get it. It's expensive, but it's actually worth the money. You've got all these presets here. So we'll just take this one for example. Let's solo this again. And what this is doing, it's taking some of these frequencies that kind of build up, and it's just dropping them down. So it's just taking away some of that harshness that the guitar can have, especially if we come in here and we're gonna, if you want to find some frequencies to boost, let's just look. If you're going to start boosting certain frequencies, then you might want to put soothe on it. This guitar, I actually like the way it sounds. I like the way it sits in the song. Another thing you might want to do is right here around 300 or so. I'm just going to make another band. One of the things that you might want to do is just sort of just have a little dip there around, say, 350, somewhere in there. And if you do that on your guitars, and you can even do it on the drum set, if you'll just dip it out just a little bit, you'll take some of that mud that builds up in the song. So I'm going to move this guitar a little bit to the right. Solo these. So these are actually going to sit pretty well. Now with these trombones, I actually want these even further panned. Like, these are going to give me my real sense of stereo. I'm going to show you what those sound like. All right, so these don't sound bad. Again, I want to just take any of that low rumble out of them. I'm going to do that for both of them. Just because I don't want a build up of low in there. But one thing I am noticing about these, in the context of the song, they don't really stand out. Yeah, they're just kind of bland. I actually want air and top end in these quite a bit. I'm gonna see what this sounds like. I'm gonna move this back to center. That is really dramatic to boost the high end that much. Let me see what that sounds like. So I know that looks dramatic. I mean, we were way boosting that top end, but the way this was recorded just didn't really catch the top end of this trombone the way that I would have liked. So again, on this one, I'm gonna really boost that top end. I want these to stand out in the song. It's really unique to have trombone in the song. So we'll go here to a verse. Like, here's this. take it. It actually has a trombone solo here. Yeah, so that actually sounds really good with that top end boosted like that. Now, another thing you can do um, with these, I'm going to go, this is going to seem strange. Oh, surround sound. I'm going to go grab a tuner here. It's just a pitch corrector. I happen to know that this song is in A, and I'm going to do it chromatic. That way it chooses every note. I want you to see something on this. This is this one right here. You go here to where it's playing a solo. So we're not T-paining this. I mean, like we're not doing it to where you can actually really notice that it's doing an awful lot. But if you pitch correct some of these live brass instruments, especially, it can actually, put them a little bit more in tune, a little bit more pleasing to the ear. So let's try these together. Yeah, so that actually sounds really good. I'm not going to do an awful lot. A lot of people, when they're mixing, they want to come in here and they want to do like everything. I mean, they just want to like completely just add all sorts of different effects. And that's not what mixing about. Mixing is about doing the least amount of work possible. Sometimes you have to dig in there and do an awful lot of work. This was actually recorded pretty well. So we're not having to do an awful lot. You do want to even some things out. But like these trombones, I don't want to throw compressors on them and try to even them out. I actually want the dynamics there. Same with the guitars. The more you start to compress things, and it ends up, blending it all together, and that's not what you want. You want some things to stand out. And I want these trombones especially to kind of stand out. Now, once you get everything kind of where you want it, I'm just going to add a new track here. And we'll just call this verb. I'll move it over here so we can know where it is. We can come down here, and I'm just going to go to see what kind of reverbs we've got. So we've got our stock reverb plugins here. These Dragonfly reverbs are free reverbs. And the rest of these are some Waves reverbs that are not free. So, let's just grab a free one. So these Dragonflies are free. I'm not sure what they're going to sound like. We'll just take this trombone and throw it in here, and we'll see what it sounds like. So I'll solo these. I don't want any dry. And make the room bigger. Let's see what the bright room. What a vocal room. Let's see what the vocal room sounds like. Go to where this is playing. Go to a solo down here. Here's where the solo kicks in. Go to a large. I like that. Let's throw this in here. Yeah, that sounds really good. You can hear what it's actually doing. Put this rhythm guitar in here too. And this one. And this is just the reverb going. Start this back over. I'm on. Now to me that's too much reverb on this guitar. So one of the things you can do, you can either, your DAW will do it a little differently, but in mine you go to the routing, so you can either go to the routing on the guitar or the routing on the verb. We'll just come here to the reverb. This rhythm guitar, it's just too much. It's too much reverb, so we can turn down the input there, and we'll change that. See what that does. Yeah, so one of the things I know why that is. On this rhythm guitar was recorded with a it actually has reverb and delay as they were recording it in. So when you add it to that reverb, it's just too much. So I'm not really gonna put reverb on this rhythm guitar. I mean, it's way down here. On these other ones though, it actually sounds that reverb actually sounds pretty good. If you're going to do reverb on the bass, which you can, I don't tend to do it, but if you do it, say put it over here, you don't want an awful lot of reverb on the bass. You want the bass to be out in front, or at least that's the way I prefer to have the bass. So listen to it. Actually want more high end in that bass. And that's the other good thing about setting your bass up this way. Is you can have, you know, if you don't have enough low end, you've got that specifically on, you know, on a track by itself, or like, you know, I wanted a little bit more high end, and I can adjust that just by turning up the volume on that second track there. Now, one of the things that you do want to do is you want to add some saturation to these guitars as well. I'm going to show you this saturation plugin. This is by Klanghelm. This is the IBG 12. This is IBGI 2. This is actually a really good transparent saturation plugin. It's not going to super saturate something, but it's going to give just enough distortion in there. You know, sort of take that digital edge off, make it more analog sounding. Now, one of the things you do want to do with this is you want to adjust the trim to where your volume's hitting up here. I'll show you. See how we're not even really activating. We're sitting down here. We want this trim to sit up here. Now you've noticed that we've upped the volume quite a bit. So if you turn the trim up, you're going to have to turn the output down to compensate for that. And then we just turn the drive up here to give it a little saturation. So that once again adds some saturation. We're going to do the same thing over here to this one, this guitar. Now this one, I didn't have to trim quite as much. And we don't have to add a whole lot of drive, just a little bit. Alright, that's actually sounding really good. So the next time we'll save this. We'll work on the vocals, and I'll show you what we do on the master bus. And then we'll also come through here and automate, because automating your song is a really, really good way to take your song to the next level, make it sound really professional. So I hope you enjoyed, guys.